Take off the jacket. Mara Bellini's command cut through the Moretti ballroom as Dante stepped toward the microphone. Nearly 200 guests turned from the champagne tower to stare at the Curvy Tailor standing beside the stage, with a silver seam ripper clenched in her hand. Dante didn't move. Mara. Now. 2 guards reached for her, but she crossed the marble floor before they could close the distance. Dante caught her wrist as she drove the seam ripper beneath his left lapel. "What are you doing?" "Keeping you alive." She tore through the silk lining. A compact black pistol struck the floor inches from his shoes. The musicians stopped. Across the room, men reached beneath their jackets while women backed away from the stage. Dante released Mara and stepped between her and the nearest drawn weapon, an instinct so swift that it hurt more than his suspicion. Rafe Calder, his security chief, lifted the pistol with a handkerchief. No one leaves. Mara stared at the ripped seam. The pocket had been closed with tiny diagonal stitches that copied her work almost perfectly. Almost. The final knot sat on the left side, where she never placed it. Dante saw only the weapon. "Who had the jacket?" he asked. "I did," Mara said. A murmur moved through the guests. In 40 minutes, Dante was supposed to announce an engagement that would end a 12-year conflict with the Viscari family. Canceling now would look like fear. Continuing could mean walking directly into an assassination. Rafe checked the serial number on the gun, then looked up. It belonged to a Viscari soldier killed last winter. Every face from the visiting family hardened. Dante's voice dropped. "Did you put it there?" Mara glanced toward the mirrored wall. The ballroom reflected every guest, every guard, every servant standing near the doors. One of them was watching for her answer. If the person who planted the weapon learned what she had noticed, the remaining suits would disappear before she could inspect them. She looked back at Dante. "Don't let anyone change your clothes tonight. Not a button, not a cuff, nothing." "That isn't an answer. It's the only one I can give you here." Pain flashed beneath his anger. For 3 years, Dante had trusted no one else to stand behind him with scissors near his throat. He knew how she marked his right sleeve half an inch longer to hide an old injury. He knew she kept peppermint candies in the drawer because he forgot to eat during council meetings. Last week, he had asked her to sew his mother's gold thread inside the engagement jacket because, he'd said, he wanted one honest thing against his heart. Now, that thread lay torn between them. Rafe pressed a powder strip against the pistol's grip. Mara's fingerprints appeared first. His expression tightened. "She handled it," he said. "Of course I handled it," Mara replied. "I pulled it out before it could be used." Vittorio Russo, Dante's longtime consigliere, stepped from beside the stage. A server saw her carry the jacket into the dressing room alone. "The cameras confirm it." Mara turned sharply. "The cameras show the hallway, not what happened inside." "They show you entered with the suit," Vittorio said, "and left without it." Dante studied her face, as if searching for the woman who had once stitched his torn coat while bullets shattered the windows around them. "Tell me who the gun was meant for." Her gaze fell to the chalk mark over his heart. "You already know." His expression closed. "You're fired," Dante said. "Effective now. You no longer work for me, and you no longer carry my protection." The words silenced the room more completely than the gun had. Mara swallowed the answer that might have saved her pride but condemned him. "Then at least burn every suit I didn't finish myself." "Rafe, lock her downstairs until we know what she did." Rafe took her arm, gentler than his orders allowed. As he led her away, Mara saw a servant crossing the upper gallery with another black garment bag. The red thread tied around its handle was hers. The man carrying it was not. Mara twisted against Rafe's grip. "The garment bag on the upper gallery. Stop that man." Rafe followed her stare, but the servant had already passed through the west door. "What man?" "Gray banquet jacket, black gloves." He was carrying another one of Dante's suits. Rafe signaled 2 guards toward the stairs. Vittorio immediately stepped into their path. "The Viscari delegation is already asking why the doors are locked," he said. "We cannot send armed men running through the guest wing because she claims she saw a coat." "It wasn't a coat," Mara said. "It was the midnight tuxedo I finished yesterday." Vittorio looked at Rafe. "Search for it quietly. She goes downstairs. Rafe obeyed. But Mara noticed the order had come from the consigliere, not the Don. The holding room beneath the ballroom had once stored wine. There were no cameras inside, only a steel door and a narrow window near the ceiling. Rafe removed the pins from Mara's dark curls, checked the pockets of her plum-colored dress, and placed her seam ripper on the table. "You should have come to me," he said. "I tried." "When?" 3:15 this afternoon. "Your office was locked. I was inspecting the ballroom. Vittorio said you'd ordered everyone to use the written security log." Rafe's expression shifted. "I gave no such order." Footsteps sounded in the corridor before Mara could answer. One of the guards returned, carrying the red-threaded garment bag. It was empty. "Found it beside the service stairs," he reported. No sign of the man she described. Rafe examined the handle. "Is this yours?" "The thread is. The knot isn't." He looked at her sharply. Mara held out her hands. "Bring me the jacket Dante was wearing and my pattern book." "That jacket is evidence. And you're treating a tailor's workroom like a crime scene without letting the tailor tell you what you're looking at." The guard almost smiled. Rafe did not, but 10 minutes later he returned with a clear evidence bag containing the torn jacket and a thick brown notebook. Mara had built Dante's clothes around the things he never admitted hurt. The right shoulder sat lower, from an old gunshot. His left hand stiffened in cold rooms. He hated tight collars because his father had once punished him by choking him with a necktie. She had never written those facts down. She had translated them into cloth, space, and movement. Rafe opened the notebook to the jacket's pattern. Mara pointed through the plastic. "The weapon pocket cuts across the chest canvas. If I had sewn it before delivery, the lapel would have pulled outward during his fitting. You fitted him this morning. For 22 minutes. Vittorio came in twice to rush us." Rafe studied the page. Small graphite marks recorded every correction. There was no hidden pocket. Someone could say you left it out of the book. They could. "Turn the jacket over." He did. "Look at the closing stitches," Mara said. "Mine slant right because I work right-handed. Those slant left, and whoever copied me used red wax on the thread." Rafe found the faint sheen near the knot. "I use beeswax," she continued. "Clear. Dante hates colored residue on white shirts." The detail landed harder than she expected. Dante had complained about it once, 2 years ago. Mara had remembered. She remembered everything about him that made her work better, then pretended her attention ended at the cutting table. Rafe closed the notebook. "This proves someone altered the jacket. It doesn't prove I didn't ask them to." "No." The door opened again. Dante stood there without a jacket, his white shirt open at the collar. The gold thread Mara had sewn for him was wound around his fingers. For one reckless second, she thought he had come because he believed her. Then, Vittorio entered behind him. "The engagement announcement will proceed in 20 minutes, Dante said. "You'll remain here until it's finished. Don't wear the midnight tuxedo. It's missing. That means whoever planted the gun knows I found it." Vittorio placed a photograph on the table. It showed Mara entering Dante's dressing room with the jacket over her arm. A second image showed her leaving empty-handed. "The hallway camera captured no one else entering for the next hour," he said. Mara looked at the timestamp. Because the person was already inside, Dante's fingers tightened around the gold thread. "Who?" he asked. "I don't know yet." Vittorio gave a quiet sigh. Convenient. Music resumed overhead. The celebration was beginning again. Dante turned to Rafe. "Search every garment she touched. If you find another weapon, she leaves this house without my name protecting her." The steel door shut behind him. Seconds later, the lights went out. The darkness lasted 7 seconds. In the 3rd second, Mara heard the steel door open. In the 5th, cloth brushed across the table. Rafe drew his gun as the lights returned. The door stood several inches open, though he had watched Dante close it. The evidence bag containing the torn jacket was gone. Rafe moved into the corridor. "Stay behind me." Mara grabbed her pattern book and followed. "Who else has a key?" "Dante, me, and the estate commander." "Vittorio?" "He carries a master key during family events." A strip of red thread lay across the threshold. Mara picked it up without touching the ends. It matched the thread from the empty garment bag. Rafe radioed the security room. Only static answered. They followed the corridor toward the service stairs, where a sharp chemical smell drifted from the laundry furnace. One of the metal doors stood open. Flames rolled behind its small glass panel. Mara saw clear plastic collapsing inside. The jacket. Rafe reached for the handle. "Don't open it," she warned. "You'll feed the fire." He shut off the gas line instead, then emptied a wall extinguisher through the lower vent. When the flames died, he pulled out the blackened evidence bag with steel tongs. Most of the jacket had burned. One shoulder remained intact. Mara crouched beside it. The chest canvas had curled away from the silk, exposing the hidden pocket. She pointed to a pale strip trapped beneath the seam. "That fabric came from the midnight tuxedo." "You're sure?" "I cut it from a bolt woven with a silver guide thread every 6 inches. It keeps the wool from twisting while it's stretched. The guide thread gets removed before the suit is finished." A silver line glinted beneath the soot. Rafe understood. Whoever made the pocket-cut material from the second suit. And then carried the rest of that suit upstairs after I exposed the gun. He photographed the surviving section before sealing it in a fresh bag. "Why burn this instead of taking it off the property?" "Because the doors are locked. Whoever stole it couldn't leave without being searched." That meant the person was still inside. Rafe sent a guard to warn Dante in person. They climbed to Mara's fitting room while the guard took the ballroom passage. Her door had been forced, but the damage was almost too neat. Cabinets stood open. Spools covered the floor. Someone had searched for a particular item rather than destroying everything. Mara went directly to the cutting table. 3 hooks had been drawn on the order sheet beside Dante's name. The first represented the engagement jacket. The second represented the missing tuxedo. The third had been crossed out. His departure coat was gone. She opened her pattern book and found the matching page missing. Rafe examined the torn binding. What was on it? Measurements, pocket placement, every fitting time, and the name of the person authorized to collect the coat. "Who?" "I don't remember. The order changed while I was fitting Dante." Rafe frowned. "You remember the length of his right sleeve to 1/8 of an inch. I remember cloth and bodies. I don't memorize signatures." It was the limitation Mara hated admitting. Written names slid out of her mind unless she connected them to color, shape, or movement. Whoever had taken the page might already know that. She closed her eyes and pictured the order sheet before the change. The signature had leaned left. Heavy pressure on the first letter. A dark smear beneath it. Not ink. Tailor's chalk. Blue chalk appeared only on the station, where she altered uniforms for Moretti security. "The person who signed for it had access to the guard fitting area," she said. "That's all I know." Rafe moved to the hallway monitor outside her workroom. Its camera feed showed Mara entering Dante's dressing room earlier that afternoon. The clock in the corner read 3:42. "Watch the mirror," Mara said. In the reflection, a banquet server crossed behind her carrying white orchids. The flowers appeared again 12 seconds later in exactly the same position. The footage repeats. Rafe replayed it, then removed the monitor's access panel. Someone looped 9 minutes. They needed security credentials. "Can you identify whose?" "Not from here. The original log is in the command room." The guard they had sent to Dante returned alone. "Mr. Russo stopped me," he said. "He ordered me to the east gate and said he would deliver the warning himself." "Did he?" Rafe asked. The guard looked toward the ballroom, where applause rose through the ceiling. Dante's engagement announcement had begun. Mara seized a sheet of brown pattern paper and wrote in letters large enough for him to read from across a room. "Your departure coat is missing." The camera was looped. "Trust no one who dressed for security tonight." She folded it once and handed it to Rafe. "Put this in Dante's hand." Rafe started for the ballroom, but his radio finally came alive. His deputy's voice broke through the static. "Shots at the east gate. All security units respond." Rafe stopped. Mara looked at the untouched windows overlooking the silent driveway. "That isn't your deputy." The ballroom doors locked from the outside, and somewhere beyond them, Dante was standing unarmed beneath the lights. Rafe tried his master key. The ballroom doors refused to open. "Someone changed the electronic lock," he said. "Can you override it?" "From the command room. That's on the other side." Music swelled beyond the doors. Mara pictured Dante standing beneath the lights, exposed because every guard believed the danger had moved to the east gate. Rafe stepped back and fired twice into the locking plate. The metal split. He drove his shoulder against the doors, forcing one open wide enough for them to enter. Dante stood on the stage beside Luciana Vescari, a poised woman in a silver gown who looked as trapped by the ceremony as he did. An engagement document rested on the table between them. Vittorio held Dante's family seal. The false alarm had emptied half the room of Moretti guards. Mara searched the remaining staff. The server in the gray jacket was moving toward the stage with a tray held too high. His right sleeve hung badly. The elbow could not bend because something rigid had been sewn between the lining and the cloth. "Dante, get down." The server dropped the tray and reached inside his jacket. Mara ran. She hit Dante from the side as the gun fired. The bullet tore through the chair behind him. Glass shattered. Guests dropped beneath tables while Rafe returned fire, but his shot struck the stage railing. The attacker grabbed Mara's hair and dragged her backward. She drove her heel onto the loose fabric behind his knee. The trouser leg tightened exactly where she knew it would. His balance broke, and they fell together. The pistol slid across the marble. Mara reached it first. She lifted the weapon away from the crowd, but before she could throw it aside, Vittorio fired. The attacker's body jerked once and collapsed beside her. Silence followed the final shot. Mara remained on her knees with the gun in both hands. Dante stood 5 feet away, staring down its barrel even though she had aimed it toward the ceiling. "Drop it," he said. She obeyed. Rafe secured the weapon, then pressed one hand against the blood spreading across his upper arm. The East Gate call was false. Someone copied my deputy's voice. Vittorio knelt beside the dead attacker and removed a phone from his pocket. The screen displayed a short exchange with a contact saved as Mara Bellini. "Bring the gray jacket through the west door. Wait until he stands beside the Vescari woman. If the first gun is found, use the second." Dante read every line. "They're forged," Mara said. Vittorio held the phone so the nearby Vescari family could see it. The messages came from her number. "My phone was taken when I was locked downstairs." Rafe looked at her. "I placed it in the security drawer." "And who had access to that drawer?" she asked. No one answered. Luciana stepped away from Dante. Her father pulled her behind the Vescari guards as if Mara had been aiming at them. "The first weapon came from our dead soldier," he said. "Now a second Vescari gun is found in her hands. This engagement was a setup." "That man tried to kill Dante," Mara said. "I stopped him." After entering through a locked door with an armed security chief, Vittorio replied, "A convincing rescue can buy a great deal of trust." Mara stared at him. "You sent Rafe away with a fake order this afternoon." "I delivered a message from security." "A message Rafe never gave." Dante turned toward Rafe. Before he could answer, one of the guards brought a black garment bag onto the stage. "We found this in the attacker's car." Inside was Dante's missing departure coat. A hidden pocket had been sewn beneath the left lapel with clean right slanting stitches. Mara's stitches. For the first time, she had no immediate answer. Someone had taken her unfinished work and completed the pocket using the exact technique shown in the missing pattern page. The imitation was no longer imperfect. Dante looked at the coat, the dead attacker, and the phone carrying Mara's name. His old fear hardened into judgment. Years earlier, a trusted cousin had saved him from one ambush only to deliver him into another. Dante had built his life around never forgiving the same warning twice. "You're leaving tonight," he said. Dante listened to Rafe. "I listened when you told me not to trust anyone. Now every road leads back to you. I just took a bullet meant for you." His gaze moved to the torn sleeve of her dress. The bullet had only grazed her upper arm, but blood ran to her elbow. Something in his face almost broke. "Almost. You are no longer under Moretti protection," he said, "before both families. If you return to this estate, you'll be treated as an enemy." Mara's worst humiliation was not being called a traitor. It was realizing that 3 years of knowing him had earned less trust than 5 minutes of planted evidence. "You knew my hands well enough to let them near your throat," she said quietly. "You should have known what they would never make." Dante ordered 2 guards to drive her home. They took her phone, her pattern book, and even the gold thread she had recovered from the ballroom floor. 20 minutes later, Mara sat bleeding in the back of an unarmored sedan as the Moretti estate disappeared behind her. The driver turned onto the river road. A black truck struck them from the side. The black truck struck the sedan behind Mara's door. Metal folded inward. The impact threw her across the back seat, and the window burst over her shoulders. The sedan spun once before crashing nose first into the river barrier. Mara stayed conscious long enough to hear the driver groan. Then someone pulled open the damaged door. "Where's the pattern book?" a man demanded. At the estate. A hand closed around her wounded arm. Mara screamed as she was dragged across the broken glass. Before they forced a hood over her head, she tore a strip from the hem of her plum dress and caught it beneath the truck's bent license plate. The vehicle carried her north. At the Moretti estate, Dante learned about the crash from the motor pool's collision alert. The sedan's location appeared on Rafe's phone 12 minutes after Mara had left. Dante stared at the flashing marker while the ruined engagement ceremony emptied around him. "Send the closest team," he ordered. Rafe pressed fresh gauze against his wounded arm. The closest team went to the east gate because of the false call. Dante understood the consequence immediately. He had removed Mara's protection at the exact moment someone inside his security system had cleared the road around her. Vittorio approached. If she planned the attack, this could be an extraction. Dante looked at him, or an execution. For the first time that night, Vittorio had no answer ready. Dante went to the evidence room while Rafe directed the search. Mara's phone sat inside the locked security drawer where it had been placed before the second attack. The drawer log showed it had opened once during her detention with Rafe's credentials. "I was with her when this says I opened it," Rafe said. "Can your credentials be copied?" "Only from the command terminal. The same terminal that controlled the hallway cameras, the ballroom doors, and the false East Gate broadcast." Dante placed Mara's phone beside the attacker's. The messages between them sounded precise, cold, and obedient. "Bring the gray jacket through the west door." Mara never called anything gray. She called it smoke, charcoal, slate, or iron. When Dante had once rejected 6 nearly identical fabrics, she had informed him that gray was what men said when they lacked the patience to look properly. The memory felt painfully intimate now. Rafe brought in the burned remains of the first jacket. Dante lifted the surviving shoulder and found his mother's gold thread trapped beneath the false pocket. The person who had cut into the canvas had sliced straight through it. Mara would have opened the seam first. She had once spent 4 hours removing that same thread from an older coat before altering it because she knew it was the last piece of clothing his mother had touched. A woman willing to protect a sentimental thread was unlikely to destroy it carelessly while preparing his murder. It did not prove her innocence. It made the evidence feel like an imitation of her. Rafe opened the original camera file. The 9-minute loop was uploaded at 3:38. Dante remembered that time without checking his calendar. Mara had been standing behind him, adjusting the collar of the engagement jacket. He had watched her in the mirror as she tried not to smile when he complained about the ceremony. "She was with me." Rafe nodded. "Someone used my credentials while both of us were in the fitting room." The technical certainty stripped away what remained of Dante's confidence. He returned to the ballroom, where Vittorio was trying to preserve the Viscari alliance. Dante interrupted him before both families. "The engagement is postponed." Luciana's father rose from his table. "Postponed means rejected. It means I won't bind 2 families together while someone controls my security." The Viscari delegation left with the unsigned agreement. By midnight, Dante had lost the port truce the engagement was meant to secure. Trucks carrying Moretti cargo were already being turned away from Viscari-controlled docks. Vittorio followed him into the library. "You are throwing away an alliance because a tailor made you doubt your own eyes." "I'm checking what my eyes were shown." Dante handed him a single piece of information. The original camera log survived on the West backup server. No one knows except Rafe and me. It was a lie. The West server held nothing useful. 17 minutes later, smoke alarms sounded in the West records room. Someone had tried to burn it. Dante watched the security feed as 2 guards arrived at the fire. One of them had served under Vittorio for 11 years. Now the betrayal had shape, though not yet a face. A call came from the River Road. The sedan had been found against the barrier. The driver was alive but unconscious. Mara was gone. Dante reached the crash site 28 minutes later. Rafe had sent teams along every northbound road, using the truck's black paint left across the sedan and the broken headlight glass scattered on the pavement. Near the rear door, Dante found the strip of plum fabric trapped beneath the truck's license bracket. It had been pulled tight into a small, deliberate knot. Rafe examined it. Could have torn during the collision. No. Dante touched the short end pointing north. Mara leaves long tails on accidental knots. She trims them close only when she wants them to hold. A traffic camera, 4 miles north, captured a black truck with 1 broken headlight. Another camera caught it turning toward the abandoned garment district. Dante closed his hand around the fabric. He had accused Mara before both families, taken away his name, and sent her into danger without armor. Doubt was no longer enough. If she was alive, his mistake was still hunting her. Rafe enlarged the final image. A second strip of plum cloth hung from the truck's rear latch. Mara was leaving them a trail. The second strip of plum fabric appeared on a chain-link fence 6 blocks into the garment district. Rafe's team found a third beneath the loading door of the abandoned Bellini uniform works. The factory had once produced police and transit uniforms before closing 12 years earlier. Its sewing floor still contained industrial machines, cutting tables, and thousands of blank jackets. The black truck was parked inside. Dante arrived 23 minutes after the traffic camera identified the turn. He did not charge through the entrance. Mara had left him a route, not permission to waste it. Rafe studied the building plans from the city archive while a medic finished wrapping his arm. 2 street exits, 1 loading bay, freight elevator in the center. Where would they keep her? If they want information, upstairs. Fewer doors. Inside the factory, Mara sat tied to a metal chair beneath a hanging work light. Her ribs burned whenever she breathed deeply. The crash had swollen her left ankle, and the bullet graze on her arm had begun bleeding again. 2 men stood near the cutting table. One had removed his jacket, revealing a Moretti security uniform beneath it. "You saw the order sheet," he said. "Tell us where the original pattern book is." "Dante has it." "Does it show every hidden holster you built into the guard uniforms?" "I don't build hidden holsters. You mark where they go." That was true. Security tailors installed the holsters after Mara completed each fitting, but her pattern pages showed exactly which guards carried them and on which side. The man placed a photograph on the table. It showed tomorrow night's emergency family council. The gathering had been called after the Viscari alliance collapsed. Every Moretti captain would attend. "Mr. Russo needs the book before the council," the second man said. "So tell us if there's a copy." Mara kept her face still. Vittorio did not merely want Dante dead. He wanted the pattern book because it could identify every compromised guard by the altered uniforms they had ordered. Once Dante died, Vittorio planned to blame the attack on the Viscari family and asked the council to grant him emergency control. The first man leaned closer. "No copy?" Mara looked at the chalk dust beneath his fingernails. "Blue, from the security fitting station. He was the person who had signed for Dante's missing departure coat." "There is one," she lied. "At my apartment." He reached for his phone. That choice kept him from noticing Mara working her right wrist against the chair's unfinished edge. She had not tried to pull free. She had rubbed the plastic restraint back and forth across a sharp metal burr until the band began to thin. Her father had taught her never to fight fabric with strength. Find the weak direction, then make every movement count. The restraint snapped. Mara did not run. Her ankle would not carry her. Instead, she grabbed the photograph and shoved it beneath the exposed drive belt of the nearest cutting machine. When the man turned, she slapped the power switch. The belt caught the photograph and dragged his gloved hand toward the wheel. He tore himself free, but the machine screamed loudly enough to echo through the factory. 3 floors below, Dante heard it. Rafe's team entered through the loading bay while Dante took the western stairs. One guard tried to stop him at the landing. Dante struck him once, took his weapon, and continued upward. By the time he reached the sewing floor, one captor had Mara against the cutting table. The other raised a pistol. Mara saw the man's left shoulder tighten beneath the uniform. "Inside pocket," she warned. Dante fired before the weapon cleared the cloth. The man fell behind the table. The second captor released Mara and ran toward the freight elevator, where Rafe's team intercepted him alive. Dante lowered his weapon. Mara stood with one hand braced against the machine. Half her dress was gone below the knees, sacrificed to the trail. Blood darkened her sleeve. Her left ankle could barely bear weight. Dante crossed the room, then stopped an arm's length away. "Can I touch you?" The question hurt more than an order would have. "No." He obeyed. Rafe entered behind him and offered Mara his uninjured arm. She accepted it, letting him help her into a chair. "The man downstairs is alive," Rafe said. "We can question him." "He won't give you Vittorio," Mara replied. "But his uniform will." She explained the blue chalk and the security patterns. Rafe immediately understood what she could not prove alone. "My office keeps the final holster orders," he said. "Separate records, different custodian. If the same names appear in both sets, we'll know which guards Vittorio moved into position." Dante listened instead of taking control. Mara noticed. She hated that she noticed. "I was wrong," he said. "You were worse than wrong. You made your doubt public, then made my danger private." His face tightened, but he did not defend himself. "I know." "No, you know I was framed. You don't yet know what you did to me." A medic approached. Mara allowed the woman to examine her ankle but refused the Moretti coat Dante offered. "I'm not going back to your estate," she said. "It's the most secure place." It was secure for everyone except me. Dante looked toward Rafe. "Find another location. Mara chooses it." That was the first order he had given all night that returned power to her. She selected the small apartment above her late father's tailoring shop. It had one staircase, a rear fire escape, and no connection to Moretti security. Rafe would provide 2 guards whom Mara approved personally. Before leaving the factory, she showed Dante the damaged photograph. The date and council location remained visible. "Vittorio plans to kill you tomorrow night," she said. "Afterward, he'll use the war he created to take your chair." Dante met her eyes. "Help me prove it. I'll help stop him." "And after?" "There is no after yet." She held out her hand, not for comfort but for terms. "You follow my plan. You share every piece of evidence. You don't order me anywhere, and you never use protection as a leash again." Dante placed his hand beneath hers without closing his fingers around it. Agreed. For the first time, their alliance belonged to both of them. By dawn, Mara's ankle was strapped into a rigid brace. Her ribs were badly bruised, and 6 stitches closed the bullet graze on her arm. She sat at her father's old cutting table with her injured leg elevated on a fabric crate. Dante remained across the room unless she asked him closer. Rafe arrived, carrying Mara's pattern book and the official holster orders from his security office. He placed them side by side beneath the cutting lamp. Mara turned the pages slowly. Her book showed every uniform she had fitted during the past year. Small blue marks indicated where another tailor would later install a holster. Rafe's separate orders recorded who had authorized that work and which guard received it. 6 names appeared in both records. "All 6 were transferred into ballroom duty last night," Rafe said. "Who approved the transfers?" Dante asked. "Vittorio." Mara found the order for the dead attacker's gray jacket. The measurements matched the man who had fired at Dante. The authorization line carried Rafe's copied credentials, but the fitting date fell during a week when Rafe had been in Boston. The records did not prove who had copied his access. They proved the attacker had entered Moretti security through a false uniform order. Mara examined the red wax thread recovered from the burned jacket. "This wasn't chosen because it looks like mine. It was chosen because it was available inside the estate." Mara examined. Rafe placed a small paper envelope beside her. The household staff found the same wax in the cabinet where Vittorio seals private council documents. Dante's expression hardened. "Connection isn't proof," Mara said. "Anyone with access to his office could have taken it." Dante looked at her with quiet recognition. A day earlier, he had treated connection as certainty. Now Mara was refusing to do the same, even to the man who had destroyed her name. "What do we have?" he asked. "The pattern book proves the hidden pocket was added after my fitting," Mara said. "It also identifies the uniforms used to move armed men through your security. Rafe's orders show those men were placed near you under copied credentials. And what are we missing? Something Vittorio does after receiving information only he has. Something he cannot blame on a dead attacker or forged message." Rafe opened the council security plan. The emergency meeting would take place that evening in the Moretti Exchange Hall. 23 captains would vote on temporary wartime authority. Canceling would allow Vittorio to claim Dante was hiding after losing the Vescari alliance. "We let the council proceed," Mara said. Dante did not object. She marked 3 entrances on the plan. "Vittorio believes the council will use the main chamber. We tell him you're secretly moving it to the East Gallery because Rafe discovered the compromised uniforms. That gives him a reason to reposition his men," Rafe said. "I'll suspend every ordinary security credential before noon. After that, only 3 emergency command keys can authorize a transfer. Mine, Dante's, and Vittorio's." Dante removed a black signet from his finger. Its underside contained the metal insert used to approve emergency orders. He placed it on the table in front of Mara. "My key stays with you." The offer unsettled her. That ring carried more than access. Dante had used it to close businesses, summon captains, and turn private decisions into commands no one questioned. "You're giving me control over your guards. I'm removing my ability to change your plan behind your back." Trust, Mara realized, did not look like a promise. It looked like surrendered power. She covered the signet with a square of white cloth and placed it inside her locked cutting drawer. Rafe sealed his own key in a numbered evidence pouch. That left Vittorio with the only usable credential. "If he does nothing, his men remain assigned to the main chamber," Rafe said. "The assassination fails." "If he moves them to the East Gallery," Mara replied, "the system records his key. He can say he was protecting me. Which is why the East Gallery is not where the council will meet." Dante leaned toward the plan, but waited until Mara nodded before approaching the table. She indicated the old fitting salon beside the exchange hall. "The real meeting stays here. We tell Vittorio that you'll enter the East Gallery wearing a coat containing a copy of my missing pattern page." Rafe understood first. He believes the page identifies every guard he recruited. He'll have to recover it before the vote. And because your lower-level credentials are suspended, he must use his own key to open the East security doors or move someone who can. "What if he sends a man through an ordinary service entrance?" Dante asked. "He can," Mara said. "So we need people watching who do not answer to Moretti security." Luciana Vescari arrived an hour later. She wore no engagement ring and brought no family guards into the shop. Dante told her the truth about the stolen Vescari weapons and Vittorio's attempt to begin a war. Luciana listened, then looked at Mara. "You saved his life while my family watched him condemn you." "Yes. And now you want me to return to the same room. I want a witness Vittorio cannot order and Dante cannot silence." Luciana agreed to attend the council as her family's observer. If the technology failed, she would watch the East Gallery from the musician's balcony and send a written warning through a Vescari courier waiting outside. The council rules guaranteed an invited observer's messenger safe passage. The plan no longer depended on one camera, one credential, or one loyal guard. Before leaving, Dante found Mara alone beside the cutting table. "You should stay here tonight." "That sounds like an order." It was fear pretending to be one. She looked up at him. He corrected himself. "Will you stay here?" "No. Vittorio used my work to frame me. I'll be present when it exposes him." Dante accepted the answer, though every part of him wanted to fight it. Mara opened the drawer and returned his signet, still wrapped in white cloth. "You'll need this at the council." He did not take it. "Keep it until the vote," he said. "If I break our agreement, You can remove every guard I command." For the first time since the ballroom, Mara believed he understood what equality would cost him. She closed her fingers around the ring. "Then tonight," she said, "you follow my lead." The emergency council began at 8 that evening in the old fitting salon. 23 Moretti captains sat around a long walnut table. Luciana occupied the observer's chair beneath the musician's balcony. Mara sat near the rear door with her ankle braced and a cane resting against her knee. Dante entered wearing a plain black suit that Mara had not made. The sight affected her more than it should have. For 3 years, he had carried her work into every negotiation, funeral, and threat. Now the space between them was visible even in the cut of his clothes. Vittorio arrived last. His gaze moved from Dante's bare right hand to Mara. He had noticed the missing signet. Rafe monitored the emergency security system from a tablet. 10 minutes before the vote, an alert appeared. 2 guards transferred to the East Gallery, he whispered. "Whose key?" Mara asked. Vittorio's. The first part of the trap had worked. Only Vittorio had been told that Dante would enter through the East Gallery carrying a copy of the missing pattern page. Luciana watched from the balcony as one transferred guard entered the decoy room. He found the coat waiting on a stand and searched its lining. When he discovered nothing, he spoke into a radio. Seconds later, every light in the East Gallery went dark. Vittorio had realized it was a trap. He did not send more men. He returned to the council table and changed the battlefield. "Before we vote on wartime authority," he announced, "we must decide whether Dante Moretti remains fit to hold it." The captains exchanged guarded looks. Vittorio placed the attacker's phone, Mara's copied messages, and the missing pattern page on the table. "The woman accused of placing a Vescari gun against Ardon's heart now holds his command signet." Every face turned toward Mara. Dante rose. "I gave it to her." "That is not a defense," Vittorio said. "It is proof that personal guilt has replaced your judgment." Mara had expected him to attack her innocence. She had not expected him to weaponize Dante's attempt at trust. Vittorio displayed the missing page. It showed the departure coat and the hidden pocket, both drawn in Mara's handwriting. "This was recovered from the dead attacker's car," he continued. "She designed the pocket, supplied the coat, and carried the first weapon into Dante's dressing room." "The page was stolen from my shop," Mara said. "You own the book. You control the records. You expect us to believe your own paperwork clears you?" It was the strongest argument he could make. The pattern book proved the pockets were added after Mara's fittings only if the council trusted the dates she had written. Rafe placed the emergency transfer log beside it. Vittorio moved armed guards to the East Gallery tonight, using information shared only with him. Vittorio did not flinch. "I moved guards because Dante told me he would use that entrance. Protecting him is my responsibility." "You sent one of them to search his coat," Luciana said from the balcony. "I sent him to secure it after learning Miss Bellini might have hidden another weapon." He had turned every part of the trap into evidence of caution. Mara studied the men around the table. Several avoided her eyes. They had watched Dante fire her in the ballroom. Now admitting she was innocent would require them to admit how easily they had accepted the accusation. Vittorio understood that shame often defended a lie more fiercely than loyalty defended the truth. He called for the vote. Before it began, Luciana wrote a short message and handed it to the Vescari courier waiting outside the salon. Mara saw the words at the top. "Bring the original armory ledger." The vote proceeded captain by captain. 10 supported Dante. 11 supported Vittorio. 2 had not yet spoken. Vittorio addressed the undecided men. "Under Dante, we lost the Vescari alliance in one night. Our docks are closed. Our guards are compromised." He handed operational command to the woman whose weapon began the crisis. "It was never her weapon," Dante said. "You cannot prove that." "Not yet." Vittorio smiled faintly. "A Don who risks his family on not yet is no Don at all." One undecided captain voted for Vittorio. The other abstained. By a single vote, the council granted Vittorio temporary wartime authority until the conspiracy was resolved. The decision gave him control over estate security, cargo routes, and all Moretti armed personnel except Dante's personal guard. Rafe's tablet went black as his credentials were revoked. The salon doors locked. Vittorio removed his command key and placed it against the council terminal. Rafe Calder will surrender his weapon. Mara Bellini will be detained as an enemy conspirator. Dante will remain under supervised protection until this council determines whether he assisted her. Several guards stepped forward. Dante moved between them and Mara. Vittorio's expression sharpened. If you resist a lawful council order, you confirm everything I have said. Mara gripped her cane and forced herself upright. Move. Dante looked back at her. This is my plan, she reminded him. Follow my lead. He stepped aside, though the choice cost him visibly. Mara placed Dante's signet on the table. I surrender his command key voluntarily, she said. Record that I used it for no transfers, no locks, and no orders. The council clerk checked the system, confirmed. Vittorio reached for the signet. Mara covered it with her hand. You have temporary authority, not ownership of the Don's key. Council rules require it to remain with a neutral custodian. Luciana stood. As the invited observer, I accept custody. Vittorio could not refuse without violating the rule in front of the captains whose votes he had just claimed as lawful. Mara handed the ring to Luciana. Vittorio ordered the guards to take her. They had crossed half the room when an alarm sounded from the east gallery. The decoy coat was burning. Vittorio's transferred guard had set it on fire to destroy whatever he believed was hidden inside. Rafe's credential was disabled, but the independent council recorder captured the emergency transfer, the guard's entry, and the fire alert under Vittorio's key. It was still not enough to prove murder. Vittorio could call it the reckless act of a frightened subordinate. Then 3 hard knocks sounded at the salon's outer door. Luciana's courier had returned. He carried a thick, hand-bound ledger bearing the Vescari family seal. Luciana broke the Vescari seal and opened the armory ledger to the marked page. 2 serial numbers appeared beneath a joint security transfer dated 6 months earlier. They matched the pistol hidden in Dante's jacket and the weapon used in the ballroom. The receiving signature belonged to Vittorio Russo. The guns were never issued to the dead Vescari soldier, Luciana said. My family loaned them directly to the Moretti consigliere for an alliance security review. Our rules required Vittorio to accept them personally. Vittorio's expression remained controlled. Both weapons disappeared during that review. The dead soldier stole them to prepare an attack. The ledger says you never reported them missing, Mara replied. I intended to recover them without provoking a war. It was a credible answer. Poor judgment was not murder. Vittorio pointed toward Mara's pattern book. And nothing in that ledger proves she did not later obtain the weapons from me. Mara moved to the table with her cane. Give me the loose pattern page. He hesitated before sliding it toward her. She placed it over the next page in her original book, then rubbed the blank paper lightly with the side of a blue pencil. Faint pressure marks appeared beneath the color. They formed the outline of Dante's departure coat exactly as Mara had originally drawn it. There was no hidden gun pocket. When I drew the pattern, the pressure left an impression on the page underneath, she explained. The loose page was stolen and altered later. Whoever added the pocket could change the ink, but not the impression already inside the book. Rafe addressed the council. I took possession of this book before Mara left the estate. It remained sealed in my evidence room until I returned it to her this morning. She could not have added that impression after the attack. The altered page cleared Mara's work. The armory ledger placed both weapons in Vittorio's custody. Still, Vittorio fought. You have shown that someone copied her patterns and stole guns assigned to my office. My guard searched the East Gallery because Dante's safety required it. Mara turned to the council recorder. Read the transfer time. 7:51. Vittorio moved that guard 9 minutes after being told the pattern page would be hidden in Dante's coat. No one else received that information. He searched for a threat. He burned the coat after discovering the page wasn't there, Luciana said. I watched him from the balcony. Mara faced the captains who had voted against Dante. Vittorio had the guns. His office supplied the red wax used to copy my stitches. He controlled the command terminal that looped the camera and copied Rafe's credentials. Tonight, When he alone was given a false location, he used his own key to send one of the same altered uniforms there. Then that guard destroyed the coat he believed held proof. The room went still as the pieces became one simple truth. Vittorio had used Mara's work to place the weapons, then used his authority to destroy the evidence. The captain who had cast the deciding vote stood. "I withdraw my support." Others followed. Vittorio did not reach for a gun. He activated the contingency he had prepared for defeat. "Remove Dante Moretti from the room," he ordered. Emergency extraction protocol. 6 guards moved at once. Mara recognized each uniform from her pattern book. "Rafe, left side of the table," she called. 2 shoulder holsters. The man by the door carries at his ankle. "Luciana, get down." Rafe overturned a chair into the first guard's path. Dante's personal men intercepted 2 more. The uncorrupted captains, already warned that compromised uniforms existed, disarmed the others before they could surround Dante. The final guard seized Vittorio and pulled him toward the east exit. Mara struck her cane against the man's right knee. His trouser leg tightened over the concealed ankle holster, trapping the weapon before he could draw it. Dante caught his wrist, and Rafe forced him to the floor. Vittorio's escape ended 3 feet from the door. The council revoked his temporary authority. His command key was placed with the clerk beside the authenticated recorder and the Vescari ledger. The surviving guards were detained for questioning under joint Moretti and Vescari custody, preventing either family from quietly changing the evidence. Dante did not retake the head of the table immediately. He walked to the place where Mara stood and faced the same captains who had watched him condemn her. "Mara Bellini did not betray this family," he said. "She recognized the first weapon, stopped the second attack, survived the danger I exposed her to, and built the plan that uncovered the truth." He removed his authority from the statement, leaving only responsibility. "I fired her without hearing her. I stripped away her protection in public. I was wrong, and my decision nearly got her killed." No one looked away now. Dante turned to Mara. "Your name is cleared before every person who heard me damage it." Mara had imagined vindication as relief. Instead, it felt like finally setting down a weight she should never have been forced to carry. Luciana returned Dante's signet to her, not to him. Mara looked at the ring in her palm, then at the empty chair at the head of the council table. She had saved the man who occupied it. Now Dante would have to prove he deserved to sit there. Vittorio Russo lost his council seat before midnight. The authenticated recorder, the Vescari armory ledger, and Mara's original pattern book were placed in joint custody. The surviving conspirators faced charges for kidnapping, attempted murder, evidence destruction, and conspiracy through attorneys independent of both families. The 6 compromised guards were removed permanently. Rafe rebuilt the security system so no single command key could control cameras, doors, and personnel transfers again. Dante accepted the restriction publicly. He also dissolved the engagement agreement with Luciana. In its place, the Moretti and Vescari families negotiated a commercial truce that required no marriage and gave neither family control over the other. 2 weeks later, Dante gathered the same captains and guests who had watched him fire Mara. She entered the ballroom wearing an emerald dress she had designed for herself. Her ankle still required a cane, but she crossed the marble without accepting Dante's arm. He stood on the same stage where the first gun had fallen. "Mara Bellini saved my life," he told the room. "She was framed with weapons entrusted to my consigliere and patterns stolen from her workroom. I accused her, without completing the investigation. Any person who repeats that accusation will be knowingly repeating a lie." He restored every professional license, contract, and supplier relationship damaged by his declaration. Compensation for her destroyed work, medical expenses, and lost business came from his personal holdings under an agreement negotiated by Mara's own attorney. She did not return as the Moretti tailor. Instead, she reopened her father's shop as an independent house specializing in protective formal wear. The Morettis could hire her under the same terms as anyone else. Dante possessed no ownership, exclusive contract, or authority over her staff. His public repair ended there. His private apology came 3 days later. Dante entered the shop alone and waited beside the cutting table until Mara invited him to sit. "I believed evidence designed around my fear," he said. "But fear did not make the decision. I did. I humiliated you, removed your protection, and sent you onto a road where my enemies could reach you. I have no excuse." Mara watched him resist the instinct to ask for forgiveness. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "Nothing you don't choose." It was the first answer that gave her room to breathe. Healing took months. Dante never stationed guards outside her shop without permission. He shared information when danger touched her life, then accepted her decisions about it. When she refused invitations, he did not send gifts to change her mind. When she finally agreed to dinner, he arrived without an escort and left when she said the evening was over. They began again without pretending the betrayal had disappeared. One winter morning, Dante brought his mother's damaged gold thread to Mara's shop. He placed it on the cutting table beside a new black jacket. "I'd like you to sew it inside," he said. "Only if you want the work." Mara examined the jacket. Its lining was open, every seam visible. No concealed pocket, no weapon, nothing hidden between them. She threaded her needle with the restored gold silk. "Take off the jacket," she said. Dante obeyed. He stepped onto the fitting platform. But this time Mara did not stand behind a man who controlled her future. She stood before an equal who understood that her hands, her work, and her love belonged to her first. When she finished, Dante offered his hand. Mara looked at it for a long moment before placing hers inside. Not because she owed him forgiveness, because now, freely, she chose what came next.